I'm joined now by the New York Times bestselling author of Us versus Them, Ian Bremmer, also the president and founder of Eurasia Group. Congratulations on that landing on the list.
Thank you.
Your book came out at a really good time. And before I get to that part of it, let me ask you about North Korea. If these hostages do get released, that's an incredible outcome leading into this summit.
Another big win. Right? I mean, Trump did offer something. He offered a summit, which is a big deal. It legitimizes Kim Jong-un. The North Koreans want that. But in return, North Koreans have suspended not just nuclear tests, but more importantly, ICBM tests, which they didn't have to do. Trump himself had said, red line, can't have missiles that hit the lower 48. Well, this is, definitely moving in the right direction before the meeting, before Trump and Kim are together. And I think if they actually let go these political prisoners, which is obviously an enormous sticking point, this place is kind of run like a concentration camp. There is no rule of law. There is no judiciary. That shows that the North Koreans are taking this very seriously.
What might we learn from these hostages if they are released from this labor camp? What might be able to glean from that?
I mean, massive mistreatment. I mean, they've been kept out of communication. I'm sure. I'd be surprised if they were tortured. But having said that, I mean, there's going to be enormous amounts of interrogation and getting them self-incriminated. Just the kind of things. I mean, there is no human rights for these people when they go over.
Last week, you had a tweet that you put out. You said, "Trump, Xi, Moon, and Kim together get my vote for the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump deserves full credit." And I think afterwards, you said you hadn't ever seen as much backlash on a tweet as you had from that. But I think that if it were to happen, that we find peace in North Korea, of course they should be the nominees for the prize.
The funny thing is that the backlash to me was all about Trump. Like, how could you say Trump? They weren't saying, how could you say Kim Jong-un should get the prize?
That was my part that I circled.
He's a little worse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you can't stand Trump, and there are a lot of people that can't stand Trump, it's pretty clear, right? So, I mean, we have this major problem in the United States that even if someone like me, who's pretty critical of Trump's foreign policy, I call him like I see him, and more often than not, I think Trump's gotten it wrong on foreign policy. But if I say he gets anything right, and in North Korea, it's not just bumbling into it. The Trump administration has actually put much more pressure on the Chinese to squeeze for sanctions. They put much more pressure on the North Koreans to realize they need to engage, more pressure on the South Koreans to realize they have to do something. And ultimately, that's moved the needle in a way that Obama and Bush were unable to. And I say that, and people aren't prepared to handle it.
So when you talk about in your book, Us versus Them, is that part of that, which is a feeling that, like, he can't get, even if he does something great, he can't get any credit for it?
We have gone to the point where literally a breaking half tweet this morning, a half tweet with ... not even finished yet, is breaking news that's what we have to cover. That actually happened to me on the news this morning. It's not. And if we think Trump's going to be gone in 4 years, in 8 years' time, and there's a presumption among those that can't stand him that that's going to fix the problems. But actually, the reason that Trump was elected president is, and you went completely outside the established norms of what a Democrat or Republican president would be, is because people, average people in the United States, like everyone I grew up with in the projects, feel like this country and the establishment no longer serves them. And that is true economically, it's true culturally, it's true in terms of our military, it's true in terms of technology. Those are deep, deep-seated things that are just not getting fixed. And we're not unique. It's the way they feel in Britain, it's the way they feel in Canada and in New Zealand, it's the way they feel across the continental EU. It's only in Japan they don't feel this way because no immigrants, population shrinking, no military with fights all over the world. Like, they're the one country that has rejected globalism, and so no one's complaining.
Well, in a minute that I have left with you, let me ask you then about another area, which is that we have President Trump's delegation on its way to China. They're there to discuss the tariffs issue and trying to work on the trade imbalance. Do you think that that is a place where the president is well positioned to get a good deal for the United States?
Much harder, right? I mean, first of all, it's a big delegation. They are not aligned, right? So they don't all agree that they want the same thing. That makes it much harder to get a deal done with the Chinese. I don't think we actually want a trade war with China, but on the technology piece, we're hitting them hard. And we're hitting them hard on an issue that Xi Jinping has made the dominant strategic issue for his presidency. They want to be the dominant technology power by 2025. We don't want that.
No.
This is going to create a fight, and I don't see us backing off that much. So even though I don't think there's going to be a trade war in terms of tariffs going down the pike, there'll be a little bit, I think that we are heading towards more confrontation with the Chinese. Hard for Trump to avoid that.
But for us to do something smart on technology.
Let's see if it would be more smart if we were doing it with our allies. The fact that the Europeans are not with us right now, I think is a serious, serious problem for Trump foreign policy.
All right, well, maybe they'll listen to you and see what they're doing. All right, Us versus Them. Ian Bremmer is the author of that, the subtitle there, The Failure of Globalism. Thanks, Ian Bremmer.